Welcome to this edition of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel. I'm talking with Casey Diaz this afternoon. Hello, Casey.
How you doing, Larry?
This is a return visit from Casey, and he was in the middle of restarting his business and life after COVID. I think you had like 200 speaking engagements lined up when COVID came along, and it just completely shut you down. And I think you had written a book, or you're getting ready to write a book, but now you've got your second book out. Is that right?
I got my second book out, and that lockdown really threw a wrench at my whole program. But we're back on track and going all over the country.
Talk about your second book.
So we just released our second book called Okay, I Will. And it is a bunch of testimonies from correctional officers, prison chaplains, nurses, people that have experienced a dramatic change in a loved one who received the first book, which was The Shot Collar, and put it in the hands of a friend, a stranger. They read through it. And it was just a drastic change in their life. And so we thought there was no planning. The strange thing happens when I'm a big guy that loves to plan, but then there's moments when you just don't plan and things happen and you just got to roll with it, right? I think all of us have those moments from time to time. And this is one of those moments for us where we thought, we need to interview these people that were eyewitnesses to the changes in complete prison blocks, from death row to solitary confinement situations. And so we decided that it was important to interview these correctional officers, these law enforcement officers, as well as prison chaplains and nurses and gun prevention counselors, and have them, by their own words, tell us what took place, what they saw, and how things changed in the lives of those that received our first book. So we're excited, and really it's a thrill ride to see and to capture their side of the story.
Yeah. And I want to get into what would cause someone, because business is about making a profit. You're making a bigger, better, faster, newer version of something, and you're delivering good service, and you do it right, you're conscientious, then your business can grow. But the idea is to make an impact, and a bigger and bigger impact. Now, you're on the side of life that there is a surprising number of people. Would be a good thing if there was an even larger number of people who have said, I'm going to go in a different direction to make my impact. I'm going to go in the direction of helping people and standing with them and work with them on the spiritual side, help them reorganize their life for greatness. And you get a chance to see a whole kind of different positive impact. But a lot of people will do this after a successful business career. They might have 10, 20, 30 years, and they say, this is not satisfying me the way I wanted. I'm looking for more out of life. The thing was, when I was starting out at college, I remember people saying, I don't want to be the guy at 40 who said I worked hard and all I did was make a bunch of money. I want to be somebody who makes money, but I want to make impact. And so a lot of people don't get a chance to address that issue or have that put in front of them before they launch out into a all-consuming business career. And that realization a lot of times comes later down the road. But I hope we can get into some of that thinking as we get into this, but because that may be a change to make it. The idea of being a winner is to live the kind of life you felt you were designed to live, and to make a positive impact, to be improving and accomplishing things on a daily basis that are important to you to accomplish, rather than being a victim, beaten down by life, kicked around and feeling sorry for yourself. That's the other side. And so winners can be winning in their careers, in their lives, in a lot of different ways, not just business success. And so you're someone who's having like monster success, winning in impacting other people. But for people who have not heard, we can give them a little teaser about your first podcast where you get into your story. Why people should be interested and why your story is so unique is that you weren't like in a gang at a young age. You were like consumed, and you are really good at it, which means you are a real bad boy. And that's where the shot collar thing came from. And so how about doing a quick review of that for the people who haven't had a chance to hear that podcast, and so that they will, or maybe to remind them, and so they'll have a better framework from understanding what you're speaking from.
I think a recap is well needed for even new listeners, right? Well, I did get involved in the whole gang culture at a very young age, of 11 years old. And just like any gang, there is a structure, there is organization, and you move up the ranks by way of violence. That was my cup of tea. It wasn't, there's different type of gang members out on the streets in every gang. And I can only speak for the LA gang structure, but there's different grades, just like in anything, just like in business, there's ranks, and how
So
you
you have
move up
major
that ladder,
leagues. You have
you
the
hit the
major
ring.
leagues, minor leagues, and gangs. Huh?
Exactly. Yeah. And, to get up into the major leagues, you're going to have to catch the attention of your crowd, your oikos, your circle of influence, and by way of violence. And for me, that was so easy for me to get involved in the violent side. You had guys that joined gangs for just the purpose of meeting girls and partying and the fast money and all that stuff. But then you have the 1 or 2% that is just about violence. And then, unfortunately, that's the route that I took. I started getting noticed by not just only my gang, but rival territories throughout Los Angeles, where, my name was just everywhere in that era. And unfortunately, at 16,
kind of like the star Tiger Woods coming up through the ranks in golf when he was young. Everybody knew about this young golfer, Tiger Woods. They knew about you in the gang world.
They did. And, and it's nothing that I glorify now as an adult, but it's part of my story. And I have to share that, because I think business in conferences, I speak all over the country and platforms, whether it's in business or a gang prevention convention, whatever the case is. I think that when you share your entire story, both the good, the bad, and the horrible, and then the redemption side of that, who doesn't like to hear a redemption story? And, that's where I was at, man. I was a slave to what I was doing, which was sin in atrocious ways, punishing my rival gang affiliates with extreme violence that earned me a title, I would say, in the streets. And then in the prison system, I was voted in as a shot caller at a very early age of 18 and a half.
Explain shot caller.
Well, when you become a shot caller, it gives you great responsibility. Not everybody wants to attain that title or that figure. Just because you're a shot caller doesn't mean that you could just do whatever you want. You got to be careful in there. And a shot caller has the ability to move drugs, to murder individuals inside and outside of prison system. So there's a lot of responsibility, a lot of weight goes on your shoulder. And for that responsibility to land on my shoulders at about 18 years old, 18 and a half, it's a lot. But you also, this arrogance and this pride comes upon you that you do have power that others don't have. But again, just like in anything, you make one brutal mistake, it can cost you your life in there.
And The Shot Caller is the name of your first book, right?
It is. Yeah. Yes.
And so they talk about how you arrived at age 11 with the mentality that this is the way I want to go. Events have their shadows are cast before events happen. This is a big event in your life, big transition. How did you wind up there? How do kids wind up to where they're just ready to go all the way to the other side?
For me, there was the violence that happened inside my home in our apartment.
And what was that?
For me, it was a father that didn't work, who sold drugs and loved drinking his life away, and was violent and would, just unleash terrible violence to my mother. Physical, emotional, verbal was his record. And boy, did he beat my mom just like a man would beat another man. And so watching violence there, the age of 8, I would witness a triple murder. So this individual walked up to his 3 victims, dished out some rounds on each one of them, and then reloaded and finished the job. And he didn't run to his car. He very slowly walked to his vehicle and didn't burn tires or anything. He just drove like he was going to the supermarket. Very calculated, very cold. And you could tell now as an adult, that this was not his first walk in the park. This guy did something similar perhaps in the past as well.
So Casey, you grew up in a world of violence. That was say you probably didn't know any other world. I mean, kindness, things like people doing nice things for each other. This was not the world you were in.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I witnessed violence at a very young age. And I had this perception that, well, this is how life is, right? Like if you're used to pattern in your life, early in your life, and it's a repetitive pattern, well, this is how it is. This becomes the norm.
Yeah.
And for me, that was what it appeared to be. And so I just ran with it. And it was easy for me to incite violence of any degree upon anybody. I mean, it was that easy.
For those of you who are sick and tired of fooling around and are dead serious about wanting to move up fast, I've got something especially for you. I've combined the best insights from over 40 years in business and making $70 million in income and compressed them into a free webinar. That's right, it's a free resource. If you want to find out exactly what the concepts are that I use in coaching million-dollar earners, register now at WeidelOnWinning.com. You'll discover the 5-part framework used by so many to reach their financial, personal, and professional goals. You can find that link in this episode's show notes.
And so you got started at a grassroots level, kind of a minor leagues type thing, and proved yourself and moved up to the ranks pretty quickly, didn't you?
I did. And again, it was just the repetitive violence that I would just uncontrolled rage that was within me.
Yep.
And it was just easy. I mean, and it sounds horrible, but it was very easy for me to unleash, just with a murderous heart, to unleash this kind of rage upon an individual. It was as easy as getting a cup of water. It was just that easy.
Well, now you obviously did not have, how close were you to your mother? You obviously had no bond between you and your dad. How many kids were in the family? Were you the oldest?
At this time, my brother wasn't born, so I was the only one that got to see that type of violence. I was very close with my mom. I still am. There's this bond of being raised by a hardworking mother who tried her best with the cards that she was dealt with. And even up to this day, there's moments when I have talks with her, mother, son type of deals. Yeah. And she always finds herself trying to apologize to me for not doing something better. And I have to step in and say, you don't have to apologize for anything. This is the hand that you were dealt and you did the best what you had. And it's fine. We came out okay now and we're good.
And do you feel like there was, when you went over there, did you feel like that was like a surrogate family for you? Like you got approval from these, even though it was for these horrific acts, that you got pats on you got approval and way to go, Casey, you're the man. Type thing. You got no other place.
Absolutely. That's what the false sense of family that the gang pitches to a young gang member, a young recruit. It's that validation, right? If you don't have a father figure, a leader in your house, in your home, in the family, a counselor, and it doesn't even have to be a dad. Well, of course, that's what you really want, right? A father figure who's responsible, who will direct you in the right path. When that's missing, it's a recipe for disaster for any kid. And it doesn't matter if you're in a wealthy neighborhood or in the ghetto.
Right.
With the absence of a father, the success rate of being honorable, being ethical, being moral is absent. That's how important a dad is to the family structure.
Yeah. And of course, we're speaking in generalities and there are exceptions and all, but it does speak to how seriously people ought to look at this situation. And that phrase you had under the false sense of family that the gangs preach, that's just something for people to be aware of. And the importance of that mature role model, male role model in the equation for a young boy growing up. Say, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable at the right time. I'll tell you something, 3rd grade, my father moves to, we're in Oklahoma. Halfway through the year, he gets transferred, he's Air Force, he gets transferred to France. And so he's going to go to France, find us a house. And we got me, my mom, and brother and sister. They're like 6 and 8 years younger. And so we moved to Georgia from January to the summer. I finished out 3rd grade, I think. They're in Georgia. And so my grandfather, and when the school year's over, then we went to over to France and lived over there for a year. But I remember this one incident. My grandfather and I got along great. I was the only one there at the house at the time. All of their kids had gone, and none of the grandkids lived nearby. And so, it was me and grandmother's in there cooking with my mother, cleaning the house and working with the younger kids. But I'm out there with my grandfather, and we got along great. He would do all kinds of things for it. But there was one time he got madder than hell at me. I still don't know what I did. I said something. I responded to something in a way, here I am, I guess 10, 11 years old. He just really lost it with me. He said, boy, he said, if you're going to act like that, you'll go through your life and you're not going to have any friends at all. You need to change. I didn't even know what I'd done, but I got the message.
Loud and clear.
I need to be a little bit easier to live with.
That's great.
And, they have a thing, and they replay it occasionally on the Nature Channel with elephants. What they found in elephants, there was a thing over there in Africa where in a certain area, the elephants were running around, and with their tusks, they were like, what do you call it? Not T-boning, but they were piercing, killing rhinos. And they would just go in and kill them. And it was just like, leave them. And they were just like killing them. Violence, like murder.
Yeah.
It was just like animal murder. And what they found out was that there had been gang warfare in the area and a lot of pirating of older elephants for their tusks. And so this new generation, adolescents, elephants had grown up in the absence over the years without any adult male supervision. In this whole, multi-100,000-acre area, there was a reign of terror. And so one of them got the idea. They went in another part of Africa and they only brought in about a half a dozen mature male elephants. All they did was turn them loose. And that stopped like that.
Wow.
The mature elephants got the message out to the young rebels, teenagers. That's not acceptable. We don't behave like that. And it stopped just like that. And so it's something to think about that kids need, young boys every now and then need a strong hand to just say, no, you don't need to do it all the time. Don't need to be whipping them and beating them. And it's not a punishment thing, but like laying the law down, like you got to behave in a certain way. And in the absence of that, all hell can break loose. And that's what happened in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm a very big believer of, you praise a kid when he does something well, when they behave, when they bring back those good grades, when they turn in their homework. You have to give them that pat on the back. You want to take them out and prize them. But when it's time for discipline, you have to discipline. And I think that is something that's not an old thing. And it's not an old school thing. It's a proper thing that needs to take place in the home very early on, by the way.
It's a matter of teaching kids about authority and respect for authority, because it's like John Mellencamp said in one of his songs, I fought the law and the law won. And that's the way it's going to be. It's just not permissible to be going out and shooting. That one guy may have gotten away with it, go out and shoot 3 people. Sooner or later, your number's going to come. Someone's going to do that to you, or you're going to be in jail, and it's going to run its course, because society's not going to tolerate that forever. I know they're testing the bounds again out in California from what I hear, but sooner or later, reason comes back into the picture, and the people who are most out of line wind up in prison. And that's why you found yourself in a supermax. At what age?
I was already 18 years old when I got what we called slammed down. And that was meaning you were put or placed in solitary confinement 23 hours out of the 24. And even when you came out of that cell for that 1 hour, state required hour of yard time, you were basically walked into a bigger cell to spend time outside of your cell by yourself. So I want to talk about like the myth of, because we're so accustomed to movies and prison movies, and we think that certain things that take place in prison are the way that we watch it in a show, in a movie, or a TV program. And it's not like that. So solitary confinement, and again, I'll speak on the California issues, it's something that a gang member has to earn. So it's not like in the movies where some potbelly correctional officer doesn't like you, and so they just place you in solitary confinement and leave you to rot and give you the worst type of food imaginable unto man, right? That's not what happens. In solitary confinement here in California, in the California Department of Corrections and in the Los Angeles County Jail, you earn that. That inmate earns that cell. And it is a coveted cell. As crazy as that sounds, it's a coveted cell because it speaks on who you are as a convict inside. So there's stages of you getting to, and a structure to someone earning that 8x10 cell, solitary cell. So for me, again, it was easy. I didn't care about life, of human life or property. Whatever I needed to do to get to the next phase, I was willing to do it. And again, I think it has a lot to do with how someone, a young boy, grows up. Again, the choices are mine as well, right?
Thank you for listening to part 1 of this episode of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. Commit to your personal and professional evolution with our free training video. It's designed not just as an educational session, but as a transformative journey for those bold enough to aim for the stars. This isn't just any webinar. It's a roadmap to achieving the extraordinary. It's tailored for those who dare to dream big, and yes, it is completely free. Join us in a network of ambitious professionals ready to take their careers to new heights. Secure your spot now at WeidelOnWinning.com, and let's unlock your potential together. Thanks for being part of this community.